Number Theory, Section 2, Prime Numbers. Video 4, Highest Common Factor Worked Example. In the previous video, we looked at how to write a program that found the highest common factor of a pair of numbers. We're now going to have a look at a worked example of how you could use your program together with some mathematics in order to answer a question. So here's the question. The first part asks us to find the highest common factor of 308 and 330, and then invites us to find the highest common factor of 94,864 and 108,900. Then the second part of the question says, show that if the HCF of A and B is C, then the HCF of A squared and B squared is C squared. So the first thing that I've noticed is that the examples that it's given me, 308 and 330, 94,864 and 108,900, are examples of a general result that it's asking me to prove in the second part. So the first part I'm going to use my program to do. So here's the highest common factor program that we introduced in the previous video, and it asked me to find the highest common factor of 308 and 330, and that's given me 22. And then it's asked me to find the highest common factor of 94,864 and 108,900. And it's given me a value of 484. Now I think 484 is 22 squared, but I can just use Python to quickly check that. 22 to the power 2 is indeed 484. So I found that it's true for the particular case that was given in the first part of the question, but I now need to show that if the highest common factor of A and B generally is C, then the highest common factor of A squared and B squared is C squared. Okay, well let's start by writing down what it is that we've got. So I know that since the HCF of A and B is C, then I know that A is a multiple of C. Let's say that it's P times C for some C. And I know that B is also a multiple of C. So let's say it's Q times C for some Q. And I know that P and Q are co-prime as well. So that's for P, Q, co-prime. The highest common factor is 1. If P and Q weren't co-prime, it would mean that there would be a bigger factor of both A and B. So now I know that I'm looking at squaring them, so let's square these things. Thus A squared is going to be P squared times C squared, and B squared is going to be Q squared times C squared. But since P and Q are co-prime, I know that P squared and Q squared are also co-prime. So the highest common factor of P squared and Q squared is also 1, which means that A squared is something times C squared and B squared is something times C squared as well, but these two things, P squared and Q squared, have a highest common factor of 1, so that means that the highest common factor of A squared and B squared is C squared. let's have a look at that written out neatly. Since the highest common factor of A and B is C, A is PC and B is QC for some coprime P and Q. So A squared is P squared times C squared, and B squared is Q squared times C squared. But since P and Q are coprime, the highest common factor of P squared and Q squared equals 1. So the highest common factor of A squared and B squared is C squared. In this video, you've learned how to solve problems with highest common factors.